Welcome to another episode of Well-Adjusted Mama. I'm your host, Dr. Laura Brayton, and today's guest is Cathy Ospina, speaking on postpartum health. Cathy Ospina is a health coach trained through Duke Integrative Medicine and a childbirth doula trained through DONA International. She's also a wife to her wonderful husband and mother to her beautiful daughter. As a doula and coach, Cathy is passionate about working with new mothers through pregnancy, childbirth, and beyond. Her goal is to empower new mothers through education. Cathy believes that empowering mothers to be who they are and prioritize their needs is the best way to inspire our children to do the same. Cathy currently lives in North Carolina with her husband and daughter. They are in the process of creating their dream life, complete with building a country home and filling it with music, children, chickens, dogs, and other critters. For more information, please visit her website at cathyospina.com. Welcome, Cathy, to the call. I'm so excited to have you on Well-Adjusted Mama.
Yeah, thank you so much, Laura. In full disclosure, I always like being transparent. So this is our second interview, and I really, really appreciate you taking the time out of your extremely busy life to redo this interview. I was just telling you a little bit before the call, like some days you're kicking butt, and then other days you just aren't kicking butt so much. And, so I really appreciate your flexibility and your grace in allowing me to do this again.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely no worries. We all have good days and bad days, and that's part of being human. And I think that also really speaks to this whole postpartum health topic that we're going to be focusing on today, especially after giving birth. There's, I think, even more of a accentuated roller coaster, so to speak, that goes along with feeling really on point and then really feeling completely scattered and all over the place and not able to have that same focus and go-get-'em type of attitude. So, it's great that, to be honest and real and authentic once again about how we all have that, it's just part of life. So, thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah, no, I really wanted to mention that because that is part of this summit. I'm going to be talking about that more later, is authenticity and honoring where you are and being open and honest about that. That's the first part of finding your voice, is saying, not everything's perfect. This is just how I am, and honoring reality. And I think when you do that, it opens the door for that honest and open conversation. It opens the door for other people to be authentic and to start also sharing their stories.
Yeah, that's true. That is so true. It kind of brings down those barriers, those walls that, especially as women, we tend to feel that we need to have this perfect image. And when you start to show that it's okay to not be perfect, because that's what reality is, I think it gives people permission around you to also not feel like they have to pretend that they are somebody that they're really not, because that's just exhausting. So, I think that's awesome to set that example for all of us. So thank you for starting the call off with that.
Yeah, for sure.
I'd love for us to have you share a little bit more about who you are, your personal story of how you became so passionate about this topic of postpartum wellness.
Yeah, of course. So I am a doula, I'm a mindfulness coach, and a new mom coach. I'm a new mom coach. And I'm a mom, I'm a mom. My daughter is 1. And I had a really, I was a birth doula and mindfulness teacher. And I had this kumbaya, vision of what new parenting would be like and the postpartum, what that would be like. And I was just so ready for it. I prepared so much for the pregnancy, so much for the birth, and I was ready to welcome this being. And I had this idea of the mother that I would be. And I had the baby. I had a beautiful pregnancy. I had a beautiful birth. And I had the baby, and I was just shocked. I was absolutely shocked. Even as a birth doula, I felt completely unprepared for the postpartum. I felt completely like like I had amnesia. I felt like even, I was high functioning before, and I felt like I don't got this. Like I was easily overwhelmed by things. I was quick to be angry. I felt a lot of anger, a lot of resentment. And I couldn't find anyone, and I felt shame about it, which was the big thing. I felt shame around this because I couldn't find anyone who was talking about that. Like if you obviously, like if you look on Facebook or you talk to people, generally, everything is these, positive, happy stories about motherhood. And I'm not saying it's so terrible, but, I couldn't find anyone who was talking about the difficulties of being a new mom and how to overcome those difficulties and how to thrive, not just get through, I felt like I was just trying to stay afloat in the postpartum and trying to get through the day. But I really wanted to know how to thrive. And the other thing was I wanted to discover who I was as a person, because I felt like that was kind of lost. And I feel like there is that tendency to kind of ignore new mothers after pregnancy and labor. There's a huge focus on, I'm speaking at a higher level, so there's a huge focus on pregnancy, birth, and then there's, the 6-week postpartum check, and all the focus goes to the baby. And I really, I asked myself, like, who am I? Who am I now? And am I selfish for asking that? I want to know me. What about me? And so, that was really the start of it. That was the question. And so the more I started looking and I started being an advocate for myself, I started doing my research, trying to figure out what was happening with me physically, emotionally, mentally. And so that inspired this idea for the summit that I'm going to tell you more about, is who is the mother, not only as a mother, but as a woman. And so that's become my passion, is to explore this question and to bring on board experts, talk to experts who can help us figure out this question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I think I find a lot of times people find their passion through life experiences, and in your case, it was actually becoming a mom, right? That was your major life experience that kind of woke up this passion for talking about the realities for women after birth and what that means, and how to help women feel supported and loved and healthy and also real, and that they don't have to pretend to have this like perfect life after giving birth, because there is a lot of challenges and struggles that go along with it.
Yes. Yeah. Excellently put. So not only, life experiences, but also that I struggled. Like I felt like I really struggled. And so it was a struggle at the time. And now I feel like it's a gift, because I can share with other women who, I know that there are other women out there who maybe are struggling right now and feel like they're struggling in silence. And so that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, is to be their voice, to say, you're not alone in this. It is a difficult time. It's just not really given that much attention. So, I hear you. I've been there, and it gets better, and we can do this together. And, I just believe that new moms are the most important people on this planet. And, I want to just reach out to them and give them a hug and help them see that. I want to help them thrive in the postpartum.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what's exciting, because there's not, to your point, a lot of information out there about seeing women feel successful as new moms, and there's no reason why we can't, shift that conversation to support and guidance and education and all these things that are going to help women feel successful. Yes,
yeah. Right. So that's really the motivation why I'm putting my summit together. So, which you're on, I'm so excited that we're going to be connecting next Thursday, and you're going to be on the summit. I can't wait to to have you join the conversation.
Yeah, I'm so thrilled to be a part of it. So thank you for inviting me to that. Before we get into talking about the summit, do you want to share a little bit more about being a doula and being a coach?
Yeah, I do. I always love talking about, doulas and coaches, because it's still, that's still not, people aren't as familiar with, people aren't familiar with what doulas are and what coaches are. Mm-hmm. So I work as a childbirth doula and also as a coach. As a doula is a woman that guides a woman through the latter stage of pregnancy and into birth, and a little bit afterwards as well. And there's also I'm a childbirth doula. There's also postpartum doulas who attend to women after the birth. So a childbirth doula I see as a witness. It's a professional. A professional friend, because I think a lot of times when you give birth in a hospital setting, you don't necessarily know who the nurse on staff is going to be. You don't know who the attending physician is going to be. However, if you hire a doula, you have a professional person who is employed directly by you and who is going to be with you throughout that sacred time. She's going to be on your side, and a doula works with the mother. She's the only one in the room really who's there solely for the mother. Even when the baby's born, everyone, the nurses might go and check the vital signs. The doula stays with the mother and cares for her continuously throughout labor, and cares for her non-clinical, emotional well-being, and physical, in terms of massages, in terms of, knowing what coping mechanisms, you talked to the woman before, knowing what coping mechanisms and positions would work really well for her in that stage of labor.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's such a valuable role. And there's a lot of research to show that having a doula at your birth is going to lower your C-section rate, as well as just have a better birth experience overall.
Oh, it's incredible. I mean, I know for me, when I had a doula, I had a doula for my birth as well, obviously. And it was, I couldn't have done it. I could not have given birth without her. She was my rock, I would just look at her and know that it was okay. She would just tell me, this is okay. What you're going through is normal and natural, and normalizing that, and I trusted her. Of course, I was able to do it without pain medication. But, you can hire a doula even if you decide to have an epidural or decide to have a cesarean section. But it is that emotional support by another woman, and by a woman who knows the process of birth, yet she's a little bit outside. So she's not going to be like your mother, right? Your mother can't watch you in pain, most likely. She's going to be there for you. She's going to hold you steady and hold your hand and guide you through that.
Right. And she's been at births before, too. So that's why, I know some women are like, well, my husband will be there. But especially if this is your first birth, there's a good chance that you as a woman have never been at a live birth before, and an even bigger chance that your husband has never been at a live birth before.
Exactly, yeah.
So if both of you are going into it kind of blind, it's just nice having someone who's actually been to multiple births, has seen multiple different scenarios regarding birth, and can just be available also to kind of like if different things come up where maybe additional interventions are needed, she can also kind of help go through the risk benefits with you so you're making a more educated decision on how you want to proceed during the labor. So it's just helpful to have that experience there with you, and because really the doctor typically is not going to be at the labor, is not going to be there for most of the labor. They're really kind of in and out of the room. So having somebody
they're there to exactly, they're there to quote unquote catch the baby, and then also the nurses are rotating in and out, and it's invaluable to have that continuous support. Exactly what you said, by a woman who knows, who has been to so many births, who knows the process and can act in that function as an educator and can give you, all of the options. So she can tell you, this is your situation, and then these are the options that are available to you. And that's really what's needed for informed consent. You can't get informed consent if you don't really know the options that are available. So that is another of the doula's roles, is as an educator and hopefully to encourage the mother to advocate for herself.
That's right. So can you tell us a little bit about what a coach is and how, what their role is and how, why they're valuable?
Yeah. So I think coaches are coming into being, but still when I tell people I'm a coach, they kind of look at me a little bit like, where's your whistle, and striped shirt. But I think coaches are also invaluable. I think everyone in the world needs a coach, in every capacity: relationship coaches, health coaches, new moms need coaches. And the biggest thing that a coach can do for you is give you perspective. Because a coach just, he or she assesses where you are, helps you clearly assess where you are, and guides you to be where you want to be. Right. In whatever capacity that is. And, chunks that down, so, tells you the reality of where you are and helps you maybe formulate goals to get to where you want to be. And that perspective is invaluable because a lot of times when we're, I say we're in our story, we're in our mind most of the time, and we don't see ourselves like how we are from the outside. So that perspective is invaluable. And technically anyone could give that to you, but your friend kind of goes into your story, right? Your friends or, your coworkers, or they're in their own stories, I should say. Yeah. A coach is trained to listen and to reflect to you as if in a mirror. So they really say, okay, this is what you reflected to me, okay, and gets you to come up with the solutions to your own problems. Right. And yes, like I said, in every single capacity of life, I strongly recommend you to hire a coach. And inspired by my own experience, I work with new mothers to, again, kind of give them perspective, because one of my biggest things after I had my baby was that I lost perspective. I didn't really recognize myself, and I didn't see myself as I was. I didn't feel like I was doing anything right. And one little, in my mind, mistake, I would go to overwhelm mode. So I work with mothers to kind of manage, to see themselves as they are and get out of their heads and take them to where they want to be.
So, could you elaborate, Cathy, about how you work with your coaching clients, which are new moms? Like, how do you provide the coaching with them, and what does it look like?
I have a 6-week coaching program, and I really individualize it. So, it's individual. So if a new mom is coming to me with issues of frustration, anger, we talk about it. Like the first session, it's an hour session, 6 1-hour sessions. They can be done in person or remotely. The first session we talk about, I don't say much. I tell her, I let her just stay where she is and without judgment. And then we talk about different goals. So I really personalize the program for her. Maybe, one, there's a little bit of an education component. And then again, it's like, I'll give action steps, and it's very individual. And And so I give action steps and really help her by seeing where she is. So maybe one component would be communication. Maybe one component would be the triggers of when she feels, let's say, anger, and just brainstorming different things that she could do. So in the case of maybe going into overwhelm or anger, if with the baby's crying, maybe, walking away from the crying baby, giving herself that space, setting up self-care practices, meditations, different healthier ways to manage the anger, to not go into the shame because she's going into anger. So again, it's very individual.
Right. And so these clients I know are all women that have already given birth, and how long after, when do they start typically working with you? Within the first year after giving birth, or are some of the moms now 2, 3, 4 years postpartum, or what do they look like?
Yeah, hopefully as soon as possible, but it does take a little while. I think there's some a lot of confusion and a lot of, again, shame about even reaching out for help. So if there's anything that if there's any one message, is that don't feel ashamed for reaching out. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength. And if there's anything that you're feeling like you're not you, just get out, just go out, maybe a coach, or maybe you need a therapist or a psychologist. So to answer your question, as soon as possible. But typically women come to me after 6 months, after they really need help, right? It's unfortunately you seek help after you reach a crisis point or something like this. But I would like women to seek help as soon as possible, just ask, and then, you have 1 or 2 sessions with a coach. If it doesn't get better, or if it does get better, perfect, It's just 1-2 sessions. And if you need more help, then get the help that you need.
Mhm. Okay. And all right, so that's the kind of coaching that you're doing, and then obviously we talked about earlier how there's all different types of coaches depending on, maybe a business coach if someone's an entrepreneur, or a health coach if they're wanting to improve their health lifestyle habits. Relationship coaches. So, with your working with new moms as a new mom coach, and your own personal experience of having challenges after birth, can you talk a little bit more about what some of those difficulties are during this 4th trimester period of a woman's life?
Yeah, that's kind of talking, I am mentioning the summit because I'm interviewing so many wonderful experts who are talking about this, how, the struggles and how they help new moms during the 4th trimester, during the, after women have their baby. So, there's so many, again, it's individual. Women can struggle from so many things after having their baby. One of the things that I most struggled with was just kind of an identity crisis, a very psychological, and it's very psychological and at the same time very real, not really knowing who you are, not feeling like something is completely off, not being able to, not really finding like you have your place, and that can lead to a lot of resentment and anger because having the baby, you have to give up a lot, which I think isn't talked about. You're giving up your independence, you're giving up the old you, and you have to change. You have to change, even if, there's wonderful things that come on the other side, but during that period where you're still you as pregnant, And then you have the baby, and it's kind of like there's a lost period. And on the other side, you find the new you, but there's that time of really a lot of confusion. A lot of confusion, and your mind is kind of chaotic. So I think that's a huge thing. Not to, if you have a traumatic birth experience, of course there's issues around that, around the physical healing of the body, or maybe it's just, it doesn't even have to be birth trauma, so to speak. It's that the birth was not as you expected or not as you wanted it to be. And so that can cause a lot of, psychological confusion, a lot of shame, a lot of unworthiness, feeling of not enoughness or unworthiness because you, quote unquote, couldn't do what you wanted or couldn't give birth in the way that you wanted, can for many women feel like you're less of a woman, even though that's not true at all. Mm-hmm. There's, your body postpartum looks differently. So there's a big component with body image and, accepting the new you, because society just wants us to bounce back. It just wants us to, look and feel just as we were before we had the baby, and that's not always the case. Going back to work is a huge thing as well. Deciding, what are you going to stay at home? Are you going to go back to work? And if you do go back to work, there's a lot of difficulties that can occur during that transition back to work of, pumping, having difficult conversations with your boss who maybe had expectations of you before, as a working woman, as a very successful, maybe highly functioning working woman, and now as a new mother who has to pump and maybe is feeling, the effects of hormones. Maybe your head's not in the game anymore. So there's lots of issues that come around transitioning back to work, having the conversations with your boss, maybe not being able to take on as much. I think, try to think of what else.
What if there's a second or third child that's already, you know what I mean? What if your family is now grown, an extra person, and there's other kids to care for? I'm just thinking of my sister who is 3 months postpartum. Her 4-year-old completely regressed after the birth of the baby. And so they're now like having to kind of redo a lot of her, potty training and feeding.
Oh, my goodness.
Some basic stuff. I mean, she's also special needs, but regardless, I mean, it's not unusual for children to have some regression, and that's a whole nother situation.
That's a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
But yeah,
but it adds to the postpartum stress,
Mm-hmm. Stress, and
sure.
And what's coming up for me right now is guilt. As a new mom, you feel guilty, about everything, right? You feel guilty about everything. Going back to work, staying at home, and even having the baby, you feel guilty maybe that your child you see your child regressing. You feel like maybe you caused it. Maybe there's something that you can do. There's always this mentality of swooping in as women and as mothers, swooping in and feeling like they can fix something and feeling like they're not enough and not doing enough, and this guilt that comes around. It's huge.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, because of all of these difficulties that you've personally experienced, some of them or some of the new moms that you have worked with and coached have experienced, you felt really compelled to create this summit called Empowered Mama Live. So I'd love for you to tell us now, what is this and how can our listeners be a part of it?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so Empowered Mama Live, as you said, it is inspired by my own experience. It is me interviewing 21-plus experts. People are still coming on board now. interviewing experts in all different fields to talk about how women can, talk about what's going on, what's going on in your body, what's going on in your mind, what's going on in your relationships, what's going on with your boobs, like what's going on in your sexual health. Like, let's talk about that first and foremost. So there's an education component. There's also an empowerment component of, if you think that there's anything off, if there's any warning signs, if you have maybe some warning signs for perinatal mood disorders. I mean, I can't diagnose anything, but we're talking about that. If you feel like there's something off, go get help. And I interviewed Dr. Shoshana Bennett, who's talking about, who gives some warning signs and tells you, says, not only get help, get the right help. So there's that component, and self-advocacy, a huge, finding your own voice, and wellness. I mean, that's the last thing. So it's not only, it's not only complaining story, or it's not only it's difficult to be a new mom. It's also, let's put attention to moms and help them to thrive, help them to be successful as mothers, help them to be happy, help them to prioritize their own needs, their self-care, help them to be good mothers. I think that's one of the few things that mothers really want, is just to feel like good mothers and to rediscover themselves. So shining and smiling and thriving as a new mom. So that's what the summit is about. And you can, everyone listening, you can join. There's going to be a link to the summit in the show notes or in wherever you put the link. And you just click on the link and you put in your name and email, and there you are. I mean, that's it. So the summit launches on October 5th, and every day for 21 days, you will receive an email from me with the featured 1 to 2 interviews per day. So I'll give you, in the email, I'll give you a recap of the introduce and give you a recap of the interview. There'll be a link to watch the interview, and you just click on the interview, and there you have it. So you have these conversations delivered right to your inbox, and you just sit back with, a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, and you just listen in.
Mm-hmm. Cathy, I'm going to put the link on the site, but can you just say the link?
Sure.
And spell it out right now? Yeah.
Sure. So the link is going to be cathyospina.com/empoweredmamalive, and that's a lot to spell. So if you want me to spell it out?
Yes, please.
Okay. It's CathyOspina.com/EMPOWERMAMMALIVE. Yeah.
CathyOspina.com/empoweredmamalive.
Yes.
And mama spelled MOMMA, not like how I spelled
Yes.
it.
Yes. That was more difficult than it seemed at first, because it was pretty long.
Yeah. And so essentially that link is through your coaching and your doula website, which is CathyOspina.com, and then there's information about the summit for Empowered Mama Live on your website.
Yes.
Okay, great. So people know that they can go there. They can go there now, and they can go ahead and click on, put in their information, like you said, their name and their email, and then they'll be getting emails starting October 5th, 2016, that will be with these pre-recorded video interviews that you're doing with all these guest experts.
Yes. Beautifully said.
Okay, good. So I think it's great for and essentially your audience is women, obviously after they've given birth, postpartum, like up until how many how long after birth would you say that it's appropriate to be a part of the summit?
I think until, I think everyone. I think, even pregnancy. I would love for pregnant women to come to join the conversation and, to hear, if you're ready to hear about it. I feel like if I'm going back to when I was pregnant, I probably wasn't ready to hear about it. I was preparing, I was one of the people preparing for the birth. But I'm hoping that's shifting, and I'm hoping that, pregnant women would like to join the conversation. Yeah. And then birth workers, I would love for birth workers to come and hear about, hear from these experts. And for as you say, for new moms, I think, the first year for sure is really difficult. But, I even have my moments, where I, go back into these it's really difficult. It's a really difficult transition. I don't know if I can answer your question yet. Maybe 1 year, maybe 3 years.
And I'm glad you mentioned pregnant women as well, because I do agree that you don't have to already be postpartum to be a part of this summit in October and get a lot of great information out of it and feel more prepared for when postpartum begins. Yeah, I mean, I think that's, again, I would hope, that's my hope, is to do the planning before. When you plan ahead of time, it makes things go so much smoothly in every area of your life, and this in particular, when you have an idea of what's going on at a hormonal level, what's going on at an emotional level, when you can name that, it helps tremendously. Even preparing for the physical recovery, there were so many gaps in my knowledge where I kind of thought I would just, bounce back after 2 weeks or bounce back after a month. I'm still physically recovering, So if I wish I had known that before. However, like I said, I understand that sometimes you're kind of not ready to receive that information. Your mind is kind of pregnancy fog. You're thinking about just getting the baby out. So, and being with your baby, but yeah, I hope that pregnant women come on board. Yeah, it totally makes sense. So, and to your point also, birth workers or people, doulas and coaches that work with new moms, probably midwives, OBGYNs. These are the type of people in the birthing, lactation consultants. All these types of practitioners would all do really well to listen into the summit as well. Yes. Okay, cool. Are there any last things that any last thoughts you want to share with the audience? I think, and I've said this, just be honest with yourself where you are. I think times are changing so much I was talking about this I had an interview this morning with an expert, and I was talking about my mom. My parents were immigrants. And when I said to my mom, how was your experience as a new mom? She said, oh, everything is great. Everything's perfect. Everything's wonderful. I don't know whether that was true or not. Right. But when I had a difficult experience, I was afraid to say that. I was afraid of what people would think, that they would think I was complaining, that, I felt like my mom didn't understand, that other people wouldn't understand. So for a long time, I hid my truth, and that caused more resentment. And when you let it out, there is no, when you let it out, it's like removing the pressure from a balloon, instead of waiting, opening the balloon and letting the air flow out softly, instead of just waiting for the pressure to build so much that it pops. Mm-hmm. And I think the honesty is the biggest thing. Being honest with yourself, honoring where you are, and being able, finding a close group of a community of people where you can say that, where you can speak your truth. This is difficult for me. I'm going through this, and can you help me?
That's another big thing. So that's what I would like to say to women. Honor where you are and be honest with yourself and others and be authentic.
Mm-hmm. And, as you're saying that, it just really reminds me that, most people really do want to help. So for a new mom, when you're surrounded by friends and family, people that you trust, when you pretend that everything's fine, then you're really robbing those people of an opportunity to help and support you. And creating a lot more stress for yourself, where you can just, maybe it's like it could be something small, but having like your father-in-law do grocery shopping for you. Like, hey, here's a list. Mm-hmm. And you're going to make him feel so needed, so loved, so helpful. Men especially love to feel helpful, and they want to help out, and they know that maybe they're not really comfortable holding a newborn, or they're certainly not going to be nursing any babies for you, but their task is to make sure that your fridge is full, or mm-hmm. Something like that.
Yes.
It's just one example, but the point is that when you share with people some of your challenges and struggles, and then you kind of give them specific ways that they can help out, a lot of times they're really going to take it and run with it, because they're going to be like, wow, I really want to help this woman because I really love
mm-hmm.
and care about her, and I didn't even know how I could help, right? So when you show them how they can be helpful, it can really be a win-win situation.
That's beautifully put. And I do think that when you ask for help, it's actually an opportunity for the other person to be helpful, to be generous, to be giving. So it works both ways.
Yes, it totally does. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for coming on Well-Adjusted Mama. I'm so excited for our listeners to go to Empowered Mama Live, sign up, be a part of this summit.
And listen to your interview.
Yes, listen to my interview for sure, and all the other amazing experts that you've hand selected to be part of this summit. I know you put a lot of thought in who you wanted to bring on to really promote this topic of postpartum wellness. And I think it's exciting that we're having this conversation, and I'm sure your hope and dream, and mine as well, is that this will spur more conversations, more support, more solutions, and more women are going to have access to this information, and we can really shift kind of that shameful attitude towards the postpartum struggle to more of that postpartum wellness.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. That's my only hope, is that we bring attention to this, and wellness. Let's not be so dire. Let's bring attention to postpartum and support our new moms.
That's right. All right, Cathy, thanks again for coming on today.
Thank you, sweetie. I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for everything, for your beautiful work. Thank you.
Thank you.